Hello and welcome to Indus News. Live from Islamabad, I'm Naila Shuja and these are the headlines. Azerbaijan has retaken Aghdam district as a part of a deal signed with Russia and Armenia to end the Nagorno-Karabakh war. The Azeri Defense Ministry says units of its army have entered the region. Ethiopia claims its forces are closing in on Mekelle, the capital of the rest of Tigray region. Government spokesperson Redwan Hussein said federal troops have won a string of victories in the fight. The chief of the Tigray Liberation Forces, Debretsion Gebremichael, confirmed that federal troops bombed Mekelle. U.S. President-elect Joe Biden has officially been declared winner in the state of Georgia after a manual audit. The Secretary of State's office said a hand tally was necessary to meet the confidence threshold required by law. Meanwhile, Biden has rejected President Donald Trump's latest claim of winning Michigan after challenging the result. He said the recount in Georgia endorsed his victory and the same will happen in Michigan. India has crossed 9 million coronavirus cases, second only to the United States in the number of infections. The virus has claimed more than 132,000 lives across the country. Mexico has become the fourth nation to hit the 100,000 deaths mark with more than 1 million infections. Meanwhile, Pakistan has reported 36 deaths overnight, pushing the toll to 7,561. The coronavirus has claimed 1.35 million lives across the world and infected more than 56 million. Spain's Rafael Nadal has reached the last four of the ATP finals by beating 2019 champion Stefanos Tsitsipas. The Spanish world number 2 overcame Greek Tsitsipas 6-4, 4-6, 6-2 at the O2 Arena in London. The 20-time Grand Slam champion will play Russia's Daniil Medvedev in the semifinals on Saturday. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. Azerbaijan has retaken Aghdam district as a part of a deal signed with Russia and Armenia to end the Nagorno-Karabakh war. The Azeri Defense Ministry says units of its army have entered the region. Aghdam is the first of 3 districts to be handed back by Armenia. As a part of the deal, Yerevan agreed to return some 15 to 20% of the territory captured by Baku in recent fighting. This includes the historic town of Shusha. The 6-week conflict killed more than 1,000 people, including civilians on both sides. Ethiopia claims its forces are closing in on Mekelle, the capital of the rest of Tigray region. Government spokesperson Redwan Hussein said federal troops have won a string of victories in the fight. The government says the Tigray Liberation Front forces have turned renegade and are holding onto power illegally. The chief of the TPLF, Debretsion Gebremichael, confirmed that federal troops bombed Mekelle. Meanwhile, Ethiopia's communication office said Tigray forces also fired rockets on the city of Badar in the Amhara region, but said the rockets caused no damage to the city. The 2-week-old conflict in Tigray has killed hundreds of people and forced over 30,000 to flee into neighboring Sudan. In Uganda, at least 16 people have been killed in protests sparked by the arrest of opposition presidential hopeful and musician Bobi Wine. In a statement, police said 65 people have been injured over 2 days, while 350 others are arrested. They said Wine was arrested while he was campaigning in the country's east for violating anti-COVID-19 measures. Following his arrest, violent protests immediately broke out in the capital, Kampala, and several other major towns. Youths have been burning tires and blockading streets to demand Wine's release. Soldiers have fanned out across the city in armored vehicles. Troops and police fired tear gas live bullets, and water cannon to disperse the protesters. In recent years, Wine has inspired many Ugandans with his call for President Yoweri Museveni to retire after 36 years in power. United States President-elect Joe Biden has officially been declared winner in the state of Georgia after a manual audit. The Secretary of State's office had a hand tally was necessary to meet the confidence threshold required by law. The audit reaffirmed Biden's victory by 12,284 votes after 6 days of counting. Trump has been trying to overturn the election results in multiple states by reaching out directly to Republican legislators. Meanwhile, Biden has rejected Trump's latest claim of winning Michigan after challenging the results. He said the recount in Georgia endorsed his victory and the same will happen in Michigan.
No, I'm not concerned. The vast majority of the American people, all the polling data has indicated, although the Republicans who worry about it is higher, but over 78% of the American people believe it's, without question, it's legitimate. I just think it's, and I think most of the Republicans I've spoken to, including some of the governors, think this is debilitating. It sends a horrible message about who we are as a country.
The United States has imposed new sanctions on 2 companies it accused of being involved in exporting forced laborers from North Korea. In a statement, the Treasury Department has warned countries to send home any remaining North Korean workers. The department said it blacklisted a Russian construction company and a North Korean company operating in Russia. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin said North Korea has a long history of exploiting its citizens. He said Pyongyang sends its citizens abroad to work in grueling conditions in order to financially support its weapons programs. The United States has estimated Pyongyang was earning more than $500 million a year from nearly 100,000 workers abroad. The Arab League has condemned U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's visit to Israeli settlements in the West Bank and Golan Heights. Pompeo has become the first U.S. Secretary of State to visit Israeli-occupied lands. In a statement, League Secretary General Ahmed Abdul-Ghith called Pompeo's tour a flagrant violation of international law. Ghith said the visit encourages the construction of illegal Israeli settlements, which is the greatest obstacle to peace. Damascus has also slammed the visit as a provocative and a violation of Syria's sovereignty. During his visit, Pompeo announced plans to allow products from Israeli settlements into the West Bank to be labeled as Made in Israel. But Palestine says Made in Israel tags will not be legitimized the settlements, which will be gone sooner or later. The United States says it will soon announce a regional investment fund for Central Asia. U.S. envoy Zalmay Khalilzad says he will also hold a high-level meeting with Uzbek, Pakistani, and Afghan representatives. Khalilzad said the United States will discuss connectivity, trade, and development initiatives with the representatives of these countries. In a series of tweets, he mentioned his meeting with the Uzbekistan's Foreign Minister Abdulaziz Kamilov in Washington. He said the two sides discussed the current status of intra-Afghan talks and the importance of an intermediate reduction in violence. Khalilzad added they also deliberated on the region's role in aiding the Afghan peace process. The envoy said both reaffirmed the importance of regional development facilitated by peace in Afghanistan. The United Nations General Assembly has adopted Pakistan's resolution on the universal realization of the right of peoples to self-determination. 71 countries joined Pakistan in sponsoring this important resolution. In a tweet, Pakistan's envoy to the United Nations, Munir Akram, says the resolution serves as a beacon of hope to millions of peoples striving to realize their basic right to self-determination. He said it reaffirms the universal character of the right to self-determination. Akram says destinies of people will be decided in accordance with the principles of justice and not by force. In Pakistan, 36 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 over the past 24 hours, raising the death toll to 7,561. The health ministry says 2,738 people tested positive for the disease overnight. The ministry said there are more than 33,000 active COVID-19 cases in the country. It said out of over 368,000 countrywide cases, more than 327,000 7,000 have recovered so far. The ministry said more than 159,000 cases have been detected in the province of Sindh, while the Punjab has reported some 112,000 cases. In the capital, Islamabad, over 25,000 have been infected so far. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. India has crossed 9 million coronavirus cases, second only to the United States in the number of infections. The virus has claimed more than 132,000 lives across the country, while Mexico has become the fourth nation to hit the 100,000 deaths mark with more than 1 million infections. The coronavirus has claimed 1.35 million lives across the world and infected more than 56 million. More in this report.
While the world desperately works to put together a COVID-19 vaccine, the virus continues to end thousands of lives and livelihoods every day. In the US, hospitality industry, educational departments, and many other socio-economic dynamics are on the verge of collapse. California's government is set to impose a statewide nighttime curfew as hospitals run out of space.
There is something much more profound about a young death. These things are incredibly emotionally and psychologically time to process that, so we kind of store it away and we keep it moving. But it is like a war. It's like going to war.
Meanwhile, in Europe, a life is lost every 17 seconds as the killer second wave rips through the region. Norway's King Harald and Queen Sonja have gone into quarantine after a member of their staff tested positive for the coronavirus. The EU said European states must only lift restrictions slowly and gradually to avoid another wave of infections. But France's health minister said while lockdowns limit spread of the disease, their effects on mental health are overwhelming.
France, like many countries in Europe, is still facing high pressure from the pandemic. You can see that on this map. That is a whole. Europe is affected by the second wave, despite multiple preventive measures that have been put in place for months by most countries.
Hungary has become the first European Union state to import Russia's Sputnik V COVID-19 vaccine, while the World Health Organization has advised doctors against prescribing Gilead's remdesivir to coronavirus patients. This has cast doubts on the effectiveness of the only antiviral approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.
World leaders have urged the G20 to help close a funding gap to buy vaccines and tests for combating the COVID-19 pandemic. Along with the international organizations, the leaders have sent a letter to Riyadh ahead of the virtual G20 summit this weekend. The signatories of the letter include leaders of South Africa, Norway, the WHO, and the President of the European Commission. The letter says G20 investment for the $4.5 billion COVID-19 funding gap will immediately save lives. It also called on the bloc to spend on securing supplies for low-income countries. A facility set up by the WHO and the Gavi Vaccine Group has raised more than $2 billion, which it says is insufficient. Turkey's Interior Minister Süleyman Soylu claims that the Kurdistan Workers' Party will be eliminated from the country in 1 year. Speaking in Ankara, Soylu said that Turkey has achieved considerable success when it comes to eliminating terrorism. He said the number of terrorists inside the country is below 340. The minister said nearly 2,000 PKK terrorists had left the group on their own accord. Turkey blames PKK for some 40,000 deaths in a 30-year conflict. European Union foreign ministers have agreed to push ahead with a new round of curbs on Belarusian officials. The second round of sanctions also includes Belarusian companies. In a press briefing, EU's chief Joseph Borrell said the latest curbs are in response to state repression of pro-democracy protests. He said the sanctions are expected to target those who finance President Alexander Lukashenko and his government. Brussels has already blacklisted almost 50 Belarusian officials over the disputed presidential election in August and a crackdown on the opposition. The new wave of sanctions followed the death of a protester last week, allegedly at the hands of security forces. In Sudan, refugees from Ethiopia's Tigray region are in urgent need of humanitarian aid, with the local help falling severely short. More in this report.
As the conflict between Ethiopia's federal government troops and the semi-autonomous Tigray region rages on, thousands of civilians have been forced to abandon their lives and flee to neighboring countries. The UN's refugee agency estimates over 27,000 Ethiopians have fled to Sudan. Migrants are struggling to survive under challenging circumstances across the border.
We have water, but we need food and clothes. We brought nothing with us, leaving all our belongings at home. We also need a hospital as many of us are sick. Some expectant mothers are in desperate need of help.
While the refugees complain about the lack of basic amenities, Sudan's government argues it has set up 8 temporary shelters where they can receive food, accommodation, and medical service.
We can see that things are still getting established in terms of the response, the humanitarian response. So it's something that we are monitoring. MSF has set up just today a nutrition screening point at the crossing point so that we can at least observe the people that are coming in and that might have malnutrition.
Sudan's Refugee Commission is calling for international support to avoid a large-scale humanitarian crisis.
Christmas trees have officially become essential shopping in France as the government granted an exception from the lockdown rules. The announcement has brought a sigh of relief to those related to the industry. More in this report.
The ongoing pandemic means this Christmas is likely to be very different to those in previous years. But there was at least some good seasonal news this week as the French Ministry of Agriculture issued a decree stating Christmas tree sales will be allowed from Friday onwards. Preparations are underway as tree producers and sellers say they are confident sales will be good despite the COVID-19 lockdown. The government decision came after intense lobbying from the industry, which feared a total collapse of its annual sales.
We are relatively confident this year. All Christmas tree producers took steps along with the parliamentarians, senators and sub-prefects of each region to emphasize the fact that it was absolutely necessary to sell Christmas trees this year as essential products for us to be able to make a living from our work.
A florist in Paris says he hopes Christmas trees will sell well as it is an important holiday where people gather with their families and with the traditional tree. But to make sure he would not be stuck with leftover trees, the florist has come up with a smart strategy.
We don't know yet. We are in the dark because of the pandemic. We do not have a precedent as we've never seen this. So we don't know where we're going. What I am going to do is I'll keep a stock of trees, and when that stock reduces to a certain threshold, I will order more.
Each year, 6 million trees are sold in France, of which 80% are homegrown. However, the cut trees are not popular with environmentalists. Several of France's Green Party mayors have said their city will not have Christmas trees this year, but will instead feature festive displays of live plants and trees.
Douglas Stewart has won the Booker Prize for his Shuggie Bain, his debut novel about a boy in the 1980s Glasgow. Chair of Judges Margaret Busby said the decision was unanimous and only took about an hour to reach. The 44-year-old Stewart wins $66,000 and is the only second Scot to have won the prestigious literary prize. Has dedicated the book to his mother, who died of alcoholism when he was 16. Other nominees were Sitsi Degarma, Avni Doshi, Maza Mengsti, and Brandon Taylor, along with Diane Cook. Among those who contributed to the ceremony were former U.S. President Barack Obama. Stocks in the Asia-Pacific are trading mixed as investors remain cautious over fallout of COVID-19 as cases surge globally. Mainland China stock have edged up with both the Shanghai Composite and the Shenzhen Composite in positive territory, while the South Korean Kospi has also gained fractionally. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index has added marginally as well. Meanwhile, in Japan, the Nikkei 225 fell nearly 0.5%, while the Topix Index also shed. Stocks in Australia have dipped below the flat line, with the ASX 200 slipping fractionally. The International Monetary Fund says the world economy is recovering from the depths of the coronavirus crisis. In a report, the IMF said there are signs of slowing momentum in the countries with resurging infections rate. IMF's managing director, Kristalina Georgieva, says progress in vaccine development is significant, but she cautioned the economic path ahead remains difficult and prone to setbacks despite some positive signs. Georgieva said U.S. and other advanced economies reported stronger than expected economic activity in the third quarter. She said the fiscal spending of nearly $12 trillion and monetary policies had averted worse outcomes. In tennis, Spain's Rafael Nadal has reached the last four of the ATP finals by beating 2019 champion Stefanos Tsitsipas. The Spanish world number 2 overcame Greek Tsitsipas 6-4, 4-6, 6-2 at the O2 Arena in London. The 20-time Grand Slam champion will play Russia's Daniil Medvedev in the semifinals on Saturday. In another contest, Russia's Andrei Rublev defeated Dominic Thiem of Austria 6-2, 7-5 in straight sets. The loss comes as a wake-up call for Thiem, as he is already through to the last four. In the Spanish La Liga, Real Madrid captain Sergio Ramos has suffered a hamstring injury on the international duty with Spain. Ramos was substituted in for the first half of the team's 6-0 thrashing of Germany. Ramos will miss the next Real's 3 games, which included the crucial Champions League fixture against Inter Milan. Real have lost 7 of the 8 lost Champions League matches in which Ramos could not play. The Catalonians are 4th in the La Liga table and 3rd in the Champions League group. Real will face a grueling schedule with games against Alves, Sevilla, Borussia, and Atletico Madrid over the next 3 weeks. Newcastle confirmed that they are in a legal dispute with Premier League over a failed takeover bill in the summer. Earlier, a Saudi Arabia-backed consortium withdrew its $460 million offer for Newcastle. The Premier League said the bid failed after the consortium declined independent arbitration and voluntarily withdrew. But Newcastle accused the league of acting inappropriately in rejecting the takeover offer. The club revealed the legal case in response to the alleged leaks by the Premier League. In a statement, the club said it understands that these will be the matters of great concerns to its fans. It added Newcastle have no choice but to respond and update its fans. Two-time winners England have been drawn against Six Nations rivals France in the Rugby World Cup 2021 pool stages. Defending champions and host New Zealand will face Wales and Australia in their group. Ireland and Scotland are yet to secure their places in the tournament, and their qualifiers have been postponed. Former champions the United States are in Pool B alongside Canada, and yet to be determined qualifiers from Europe and Asia. England are currently ranked number 1 in the world after beating France last week. The Rugby World Cup will take place from the 18th of September to the 16th of October next year, with the final being played at Eden Park. It's now time to take a look at the weather around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at Indus.News.